Superhero stories teach us how to be the best versions of ourselves. They inspire us to face our problems head on and encourage us to do the right thing, no matter how hard that may be. Or at least that's the case for Spider-Man. At his core, he's a normal person dealing with difficult problems both extraordinary and everyday. But it's his ability to learn and grow from his experiences that, for so many, makes him someone to look up to. But just as impactful are the stories of the people who are broken by their experiences. People who just can't deal with all the pitfalls life keeps leading them into. These characters warn us about what can happen when we let our worst qualities take over. And fittingly, I think one of the best examples of this can be found in the journey of Doctor Otto Octavius in Marvel's Spider-Man. For anyone unfamiliar, Marvel's Spider-Man, or Insomniac Spider-Man, or Spider-Man PS4, or Spider-Man 2018, or whatever else you want to call it, is an open-world action-adventure developed by Insomniac Games for the PS4 that follows the adventures of a post-college Peter Parker, who, while struggling with relationship drama, financial woes, professional missteps, and all the other responsibilities of adulthood, must protect New York from a new and mysterious crime gang known as the Demons, as they seek to take over the city in the wake of a power vacuum left after Wilson Fisk's imprisonment. Lots of people have already talked in absurd detail about all the nitty-gritty details of this experience, so I'll be brief with my general thoughts here. It's a pretty damn solid game. The combat is simple but dynamic, the traversal is intuitive and fun, the graphics are, of course, gorgeous, and the overall visual direction is incredible. The characters and their relationships are well written and feel genuine. I particularly like how they wrote MJ and Miles. The voice actors do an amazing job of capturing the characters' emotions and personality, especially Yuri Lowenthal, whose performance has become the voice of Spider-Man in my head. Its story, though slow to start and often repetitive, is emotionally impactful, with an ending that packs such a punch it has me tearing up just thinking about it. The game is filled with lots of interesting challenges and side missions, with a lot of remarkably well done levels, but a lot of which, despite my enjoyment of them, are underdeveloped and underutilized, and at their worst just seem like padding. Especially the boss fights, as even the more unique ones feel overly simplistic, and which also feel really oddly spaced out, like at least half of them took place in the last few missions alone. And maybe this is just me, but the auto lock-on stuff is really fiddly. It's a great game, but there's a lot they could have polished off. But one of the things they absolutely nailed was their portrayal of one of the game's major antagonists, Doctor Octopus. He is a ruthless villain. He's calculated and manipulative, constantly creating clever plans that twist his enemies' weaknesses to his advantage. He exploits the predictable nature of Spider-Man's do-gooder antics to execute his plans, whether it be to get Martin Lee into the raft to kick up a riot large enough for all of Spider-Man's most dangerous foes to escape, or to lead him right into a death trap. He's cold and callous, unleashing a horrific plague onto New York and risking the lives of millions without a second thought, just to spite the world that he feels has wronged him. And discards his own allies when he feels they've lost their value, throwing away Martin Lee like a ragdoll after Lee's attempt on Norman Osborn's life is thwarted.
Useless.
He looms over his enemies and crushes anyone who stands in his way like a bug. He's a menacing and malicious figure whose drive for control makes him a powerful threat, one whose impact on the game and its world is tangible. And as a side note, I feel like this Doc Ock, or at least his intentions, act as a bit of a subversion of the other most well-known depiction of the character, from Spider-Man 2. Both are ambitious scientists driven over the edge by tragedy, but what helped the film version of Doc come to his senses and do the right thing?
You once spoke to me about intelligence. That it was a gift to be used for the good of mankind.
A privilege.
Is what becomes the game version of Doc's justification for all the horrible things he's done.
That's because men like us have a duty, a responsibility, to use our talents in the service of others. Even if they don't appreciate it, we have to do what's best for those beneath us, whether they understand it or not.
Both are driven by a desire to use their gifts for the betterment of humanity, but they end up developing nearly polar opposite interpretations of how that should be achieved. It's almost shocking how well this version of Doc works, especially considering that he only spends the last act of the game as a villain. Doctor Octavius spends most of the game as a sympathetic side character. He's an ambitious, if somewhat cocky, scientist looking to revolutionize the world of prosthetics. A motivation that's driven partially by the fact that he was diagnosed with a degenerative neurological disorder that's slowly wearing down his motor functions. He has a strong bond with Peter, seeing him as a close friend and appreciating his loyalty and intelligence, even praising his knack for guerrilla science.
Just as I was ready to order a custom machine replacement part, he returned from the hardware store with a bottle of solvent and a toothbrush. Bang. Actuator problem resolved. The boy is a genius.
Likewise, he's someone that Peter looks up to, believing in his research to the point of feeling like it's more important than his work as Spider-Man.
But Dr. Octavius' work will help millions. I'm right where I want to be, right where I should be.
Almost sounds like it's more important than your other job.
And it's from his perspective that we understand Doc's character, as someone who's doing his best to work through hard times. And so, when Doc has his lab shut down by Mayor Osborn, claiming to do so out of safety concerns, but which Doc believes he's doing to shut down the competition, we can understand his growing frustrations, his feelings of isolation and failure, to the point of ignoring what it's doing to him until it's too late. Despite the heavy foreshadowing and cultural awareness that clues us into his inevitable fate, even as he steps down that dark path, we realize that we don't want to see him turn. Part of that may come from the fact that Peter, and by extension us as the player, are partially responsible for Doc's journey. Not only does Peter's heroic drive, as mentioned before, let Doc's plan to cause a riot at the raft to unleash his Sinister Six succeed, but Peter's work as a lab assistant helps Doc to perfect the technology that later becomes his namesake, the responsibility for which is pushed onto the player through the extra minigames available to play in the lab, which both test the best material for Doc to build his tentacles out of and fix the various engineering bugs of the technology in question. It's a fitting detail given the story's focus on the idea of responsibility and, more specifically, how Peter deals with it. As a college graduate living on his own, he's learning to balance the responsibilities of being an adult, paying rent, feeding himself, maintaining a job, etc., with his own self-imposed responsibility of being New York's guardian. The game literally starts with him being forced to choose between dealing with his rent or dealing with Wilson Fisk, and he happily chooses the latter. After freeing the city from Fisk's criminal reign of terror, he has to quickly get to work, only to get there late and realize Doc has started experimenting without him, and afterward, going back out to deal with as many of the city's petty crimes as he can. He's constantly bouncing between his responsibilities for the sake of being a superhero. And while it's easy to see how that willingness to help others can be noble, I mean, the guy also volunteers at a homeless shelter for Christ's sake, it also shows how damaging the same mentality can become as he takes on more responsibility than he can handle. His choice to be Spider-Man over dealing with his rent eventually comes back to bite him when he gets evicted. In his relationship with MJ, he became overbearing and overprotective, leaving MJ feeling smothered by his constant nitpicking, which led to them breaking up, and is something which even after they start hanging out again slowly creeps back into their partnership.
I thought we broke up so you could focus on your career.
We broke up because you wouldn't stop treating me like a baby. Don't do this, MJ. Don't do that, MJ. Oh, that's too dangerous, MJ. I may not have super spider powers, but I'm not made out of glass.
Peter has a bad habit of trying to shoulder everyone's burdens himself, and it only serves to do more damage than it does to help. And it more than likely stems from his origin. In it, he let a thief slip by him out of pure apathy, thinking it isn't his problem to deal with, only for that same thief to later mug and shoot his Uncle Ben. It's this tragedy that informs his character as he realizes that he can't simply stand around and let bad things happen, that he needs to use his powers to help others whenever he can, so that no one else has to suffer a fate as cruel as Ben's. But it also seems to make him think that any kind of inaction on his part is a problem. Even when he's horribly injured, he still forces himself back out into the city to protect people. To rest and let himself heal is to do nothing, and that simply isn't acceptable. This through line works pretty well with the game's other major theme of people wrestling with their inner demons, an idea that is quite literally embodied by the game's other major antagonist, Martin Lee, aka Mr. Negative, who not only is himself struggling with the death of his parents due to Osborn's experimentation on him as a child, but also leads to demons and can corrupt people by making them give in to their dark side. And look, the story is just very on the nose, is what I'm saying. Peter's desire to take responsibility is shown to be a detriment to his physical and mental health. This is where Doc comes in, to take those problems to their most extreme. Peter and Doc are similar in a lot of ways. Both are genius scientists, both are compassionate and thoughtful and do their best to look out for the people they care for. Both want to use their respective gifts to help others, but both are constantly hit with setbacks. But whereas Peter does his best to push through them, they slowly start to pile up for Doc. He doesn't have the same sense of optimism as Peter, and he's too jaded by his experiences, especially those with Osborn, to be anything other than cynical. And more importantly, his time is limited, with him only having a year or so before his condition leaves him completely unable to use his body. His entire life seems to be spiraling out of control, caught in a spinning web of tragedy and misfortune, and in a bid to latch on to some semblance of stability, he lashes out. Peter's desire to take responsibility is twisted into a desperation for control in Doc. And when combined with his intense ambition and genius intellect, it makes him willing and capable to do anything necessary to get what he wants. He essentially acts as a dark reflection of Peter's best and worst traits, showing what he could turn into if he was to allow himself to give in to his inner demons. And yet, we still want to save him. Like Peter, we know the real Doc must be in there somewhere, that it's just the tentacles altering his personality, that if we can just get through to him, we'll be able to turn this all around. Or at least, that's what we want to think.
Such a disappointment. Parker.
Throughout Doc's conflict with Spider-Man, he schemed and made multiple attempts on Spider-Man's life, knowing that it was Peter under the mask. This Doc is willing to kill his best friend for the sake of getting revenge. This Doc has completely turned. It's like what Aunt May says about Martin Lee.
But the Martin I know couldn't have done that. Whatever's become of him, that's not the one I want to remember.
Except, that is the Lee she knows. It's just a part of him she never got to see. Likewise, this Doc is the Doc we've always known, but in this case, it's a part we were very clearly shown. If his outbursts of rage weren't enough to warn us that something wasn't right, there's the fact that after being talked down by Peter whilst demonstrating the power of his tentacles, Doc checks to make sure Peter is gone before turning them back on, purposely going behind his back to do what he wants. Before that, he was willing to delve into illegal territory to achieve his goals by making deals with shady companies. But even worse is the implication that this might have been around the time he started reaching out to make deals with the other members of what would become the Sinister Six, some of Spider-Man's most dangerous foes. Doc's problems can even be seen near the start of the game, when Doc seems to mistake Peter for Spider-Man's suit designer, but which we now know was Doc covering up his realization. Even if it was for Peter's sake, to make him feel more comfortable with Doc knowing his secret, it still shows how well Doc can hide his intentions. The traits that would later define his villainy have always been there, we just didn't notice. And while things could have turned out very different for Doc, it's clear that he made up his mind about the path he wants to follow a long time ago.
Someday I'll turn the tables. I'll teach Norman what it is to feel helpless and small.
In the end, Peter is left with a difficult decision to make. Does he keep pushing himself beyond what he can handle and risk breaking himself in the process? Does he risk letting his desire to take responsibility turn into a need for control, just like Doc? Does he keep trying to help Doc, knowing he's going to manipulate him?
And of course, you rest easy, knowing your secret is safe with me.
Or does he draw a line and acknowledge his and other people's limits? Does he admit that he can't do it all by himself and needs to let other people in to support him, just as he supports them? For Pete, the answer is obvious. Sometimes the most responsible thing to do is to let go.
Even when it hurts like hell.
Peter, where are you going? Peter? Peter!
Doctor Octavius' descent into villainy is a tragedy in every sense of the word, but it's one that teaches us a valuable lesson. And yeah, those are my thoughts. This one was quite chaotic to put together for a lot of reasons. November's been a bit of a weird month for me personally, and then Stan Lee's passing, may he rest in peace, made me feel weird about making anything even remotely related to him. And of course, as you may have seen me ramble about on Twitter, this video has changed drastically. It was originally going to be a breakdown of Spider-Man as a character, then just popular depictions of Spider-Man, then just a thematic breakdown of Marvel's Spider-Man, and eventually became this. I think it came out well, all things considered. So this isn't the kind of focus I want for my videos, and ironically, the process of making this has helped me figure out what I want my videos to be. Though I'll talk about that more in an update later. Anyway, let me know what you think. If you agree, disagree, why you think of Doc Ock and Marvel's Spider-Man, what your favorite Spider-Man game is. For me, the nostalgia goggles dictate I fight anyone who doesn't say Ultimate Spider-Man, etc. And thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this and want to see more, check out my last video where I discussed the odd quality that makes stop-motion animation so creepy, and yet so amazing. And don't forget to like, comment, share, and of course, subscribe to come fly with me. You can also follow me on Twitter for more updates about this channel and other stuff, and hopefully, I'll see you later.